Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. I'm happy to see you. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Laurel. Hi, Ingrid. And
Hello. Nice to see you.
nice to see you too. And Jennifer. So I guess, oh, someone else is coming. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes. I hope you're having a splendid day wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining. I know that we are in different time zones. It sometimes requires a bit of organization to come, and it's really a pleasure. I know that lots of people join the event and are planning to watch it later, but without you guys here, I would be alone. So really, thank you. Okay, so today we're exploring the topic of creating mindful language immersion from home, mindful between brackets, but of course that's always my approach on things. And I'm going to share my screen with you. And so it's a workshop. It means that I'm going to share some stuff with you, but also we're going to brainstorm and we're going to share a little bit our thoughts. Are you really going to leave, I hope, this workshop with some ideas on how to create a daily immersion from yourself, from home. But do you see my screen? Yes, it works. Yes. So before starting, let me tell you a bit more about me. I see that I recognize many of you, so I think you recognize me too. I don't need to go into too many details here. But so I'm Jessica Tefeng-Girel. I'm a mindful life coach and a language teacher. What it means is that I help French learners to discover themselves through the lens of the new language that is French in my case. So I help you guys find your voice in French, create a more balanced life that is more aligned with the desires and authenticity, using the safe distance that a learned language helps you to do. So of course, this job definition is not exactly the dictionary because I created the concept myself, and the idea came to me through my own experience, my story, and also my research. So in my case, English was very therapeutic in my life, and it offered me this new, fresh perspective that allowed me really to reframe my story, my self-identity, and really go for what I wanted to do in my life. First of all, to listen to what I wanted, because I think that's the first step, that sometimes we don't necessarily allow ourselves to listen within, and we just, follow the pressure of family, peers, and society. So I create learning experiences around self-knowledge, like most of you have already tried or are trying at the moment. Creative and free expression. So I mean journaling, but also creation and art, and of course mindfulness. So you can find this kind of experiences in short programs or the membership Bulle de Français, which I will tell you a bit more at the end of this workshop, because we're opening registrations again at the end of the month. And I also create immersive events and individual coaching programs. But enough about me. Today, the goals of this workshop is to help you build and maintain a mindful learning routine that works for you. We're going to talk about why it's important to leave the textbooks behind sometimes and instead Frenchify, I like this word, Frenchify your life in a way that actually we find ways and opportunities to invite more creativity and joy into our life through French. We're going to see how to organize our time realistically for successful autonomous work. I hear a lot of people sometimes have struggle, even if they have, the greatest material that they can have, to actually have I don't want to say discipline, because it's not so much about discipline, but to actually create the time in their life to take advantage of those material. And then discover French resources to support your immersion. So I'll give you some pointers, and you'll also, after the workshop, you receive an email with the workbook that I created for you. And in it, you will find links to different resources that you can use for that immersion that you're going to create. So my intention today is to make you feel empowered as the actor of your language learning success, not putting that power in the hands only of a teacher or a tutor, but your own, because it is your journey. So let's talk about immersions. So this is a very particular time, of course, because we cannot really travel and have those immersions in real life across the world, like maybe you've done before, or maybe you wanted to do, or you were planning to do this year. So I think that's why this workshop had a successful rate of responses as well, because it's really on point with the period that we are going through. So I was wondering what makes actually language immersions effective. So I'm going really to take like a couple of minutes. Let's take a couple of minutes together. Maybe you want to brainstorm with a pen, and if you have a little notepad next to you, and think, what makes it effective? If you go and live in the country, or you spend some time traveling in the place where they speak French, for example, or any other language that you're learning, what makes it effective? I'll give you 2 minutes. So when you're ready, when you have a few ideas, you can just unmute yourself and share with us what you have come up with.
I'll go first since nobody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
And I wrote here several things. One is it forces you to use the language of the country that you're in. And why it forces you, because nobody is speaking that your original language, so you have to speak their language. Is you're basically on survival mode, that in order to survive, you have to speak and you have to tell others, so you have to use their language again. And you're learning in the process of communicating, whatever you're communicating, you actually are learning through the process that you're going through.
Yes, thank you so much. That's really on point. So indeed, you're forced to learn, your survival depends on it. And you have to communicate, and you want to communicate with people so that you use the language. Other ideas?
Hi, everyone. I think for me, like the personal connections are really important. Meeting people just really helps the language stick a lot more. And then just like the little interactions you have, like maybe buying a bus ticket, things like that, that's vocabulary that you'll never forget. And then I think just spending all day or multiple hours a day immersed in the language, my brain just, there's some kind of process happens and it clicks over and I really start thinking in that language. But there's like a threshold where, you know, after several hours a day, that process kicks in, and that's harder to do at home.
Right. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, indeed. I agree that there's really something, and I was able to witness that when I did the language retreat last year, and to live it myself in my different experiences abroad, that being surrounded and exposed to the language 24/7, after a couple of days, something happens that you start dreaming in the language even sometimes. Yeah, so I completely agree with that. Thank you for sharing. Laurel, you wanted to, I saw that you were unmuting yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with the fact that actually being in the environment, the difference between that and using the language at home in an immersive way is that you have absolutely no choice. So you're really forced to do it. And exactly the same thing, what you said, that after a couple of days, something shifts in your mind and suddenly it's all coming together really beautifully. And it is quite difficult to do that at home. But there's a lot of other things you can do that still keep you progressing. So that's the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think there's a limit to, and that's what we'll see is also today. There's a limit to how much of an immersion you can recreate at home, and that's, I think you've pointed exactly what is difficult or almost impossible to recreate. But there's also some limits as well, like we'll see, to what traveling in the place will bring. But back to the benefits. Does someone else have something to share? Maybe other things that you were thinking of, why it's so effective or what benefits it brings?
Okay, so I may add that we just become excited, I would say, at least me, and completely focused, involved when I can immerse. So it's like these feelings I cannot reach when I'm with my textbook, yeah, or when I'm bored doing repetitive tasks. So yeah, that feeling that you can really do it and you can make friends, you can achieve something like, let's say, our meeting at the moment. Yes, so it's a kind of immersion.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the idea of the excitement of something new and something enriching and something engaging, which we can recreate at home. So that's a good point. Okay. Urmi, Michelle, did you want to add something?
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour.
So for me, because I've been on a language learning journey for a really long time, and I'm always looking for ways to make it more immersive because I always switch back to English, after a study session. I'm always going to switch back to English, and I much more enjoy when I'm learning French and I'm in it because I'm thinking in French and I'm wanting to say what I want to say in French. But then once I'm done, it's like my brain just wants to think in English, even when I don't want it to. So, when you're in an immersive environment, you're, like Laurel was saying, you're just kind of forced. You don't really have a choice. And, that's kind of what I'm always looking for. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing it. Yeah, absolutely. It's this thing that you don't have a choice, or you don't, because, okay, let me say this. I think when you're an English speaker, most of the time you do have a choice. Not everywhere in the world, but for example, when I took the students last year to France, they could have switched to English anytime if they'd wanted to. They would have survived with English, just with English as well. And actually at some point, we had a problem with the car that we rented, and I wasn't there. It was one of my students who had rented the car, so he went to bring it back, and he told me it would have been much easier to deal with it in English, of course, and the people at the company, you know, were able to speak English, but made the choice. He had the intention of, no, I'm going to deal with it in French because it's my challenge. So it's a question of we don't have a choice, or we don't give ourselves a choice. Like, we're here, we've traveled all this way to this place. We're not going to you know, ruin the opportunity and just switch to English or to whatever your mother tongue is. Whenever, of course, it's different when your mother tongue is not English, or when you don't speak English. There's less chance of the people being able to speak your language, but you get my point. Ermi, did you want to say something? I don't want to, like, if you don't have anything to say, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but if you do, please go ahead.
I just typed in the chat because I am cooking at the same time, because I had no chance to have a break today. So I'm listening, and
Okay.
I what I wanted
Wonderful.
to say. Sorry.
Well, thank you. No, that's fine. But just thank you for reminding me to check the chat, because I'm not still. Okay. So you said, thank you so much. You said, for me, it's using the language as much as you can in addition to listening to it. Yes, absolutely. So like we said, exposure, being surrounded with the language. So that's a little bit what I had in mind as well when I was brainstorming and creating this workshop. So exposure, right? The fact of being exposed to the language all the time, 24/7, or maybe not when we're sleeping, but still we can dream in the language. So that could happen. The fact we were talking about how, Ingrid, you were saying how those words stick because we use them in a real context, sorry. So really our memory is enhanced thanks to the real life experiences. And this is due partly because it's a real experience that is happening in a context with real people and communication, and also because we have high emotions going on, and emotions really enhance the way we remember things. Whether the emotions are positive or negative, by the way, has the same impact on the quality of the memory. But okay, traveling is always, well, most of the time, something super positive. And even if you're super stressed at the moment of asking for your bus ticket, that's going to help you remember actually even more if you do make a mistake. If you do make a mistake and then the bus driver says, oh, that's what you meant, you'll never forget that, for sure. The third thing that I came up with is that it was real, authentic French, or real language if it's another country, another language, I mean. In the sense that whatever sentences or phrases you can find in a workbook, in a textbook, in a phrase book, you know, you learn to say things a certain way, bonjour and comment ça va, and then you arrive in France or Canada or Belgium or Switzerland, and all of a sudden they say it a different way. And that's like, oh, that's different. And so that sticks also. It makes it more real. And I think that when we relate to things or to people who are more real, it makes us want to engage with that. It rekindles the excitement and the passion that we can have for a language. And yeah, so speaking the language all the time, being in survival mode, like you said, having to use it. You know, you need to go to the toilet, you need to say, do you have toilets? Please. However, sometimes maybe we can be in a place where an immersion could happen, but yet it doesn't deliver. Have you ever had, or we don't deliver ourselves in a way. Have you ever had an experience where you were traveling to the country and maybe you had the intention of learning the language or practicing the language and it didn't happen?
It wasn't so much that it didn't happen, but it gets back to what you were saying about the English and being an English speaker. I was in France for 6 months in lycée, and everybody wanted to speak English to me. All the other students, as soon as I showed up, all I was an opportunity to practice their English because they needed really good marks in their schoolwork. So, and they get frustrated with me really quickly speaking French. And basically, if I wanted to make friends, I had to speak English. And that's basically what it came down to. So I spent most of my time speaking English to my peers when I was there. So that was kind of annoying.
Yes, because then you leave and you have these expectations that, okay, I'm going to spend 6 months in France, I'll come back fluent. Well, no.
And I kind of did. I kind of did
Right.
come back fluent, and I kind of, definitely my French improved drastically. But I have found that the things that a person can do independently actually improve the language, in a deeper way, like you can really improve the real, yeah, I just find the sort of self-immersion in some ways works better than actually being in the place. And also things like having conversations with, italki tutors who you really have a lot to talk with. You can have much more in-depth and interesting conversations and actually learn more about the country and culture than you do having those superficial conversations that you have when you are like on site, so to speak.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a big difference, and they both complement each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing it up. Ermi is telling us in the chat that, so she didn't, but she knows some friends who had not a good experience. It's because they didn't make the most of the opportunities that they had and only hang out with people from the same nationality as them. Yes, that's also a problem. It requires a lot of courage, effort, vulnerability to stick with the locals and not make friends with people who come from your same country. And like you were saying, it's not always that. It's like Laurel was saying, sometimes it's just that people want to practice their English with you. So yay. That's actually a frustration that many learners have, even speaking with natives in their own country, that, oh, I speak French, and then they switch back to English, which is bothering. And I think when it's just a short, exchange, like ordering coffee or chatting a little bit with someone in a supermarket or something, it could be just as simple as saying, no, please, I'd like to speak French. Please be patient, but I want to practice. But it's not always easy to impose that on the other person because, well, it's not their job. And I was having this conversation with my husband the other week, and I was saying, when someone speaks to you in French and you can hear that they have an English accent, what do you naturally do? And he says, I switch to English. And I say, why? Because you lose your patience? He says, no, because I want to be friendly, because I speak the language and it's maybe easier for me. So it's like really going for the effective communication, the way of simplicity of, oh, great, I want to help you if I can. Of course, if the person's English is lower, then it doesn't work. But yes, so I'll share a bit with you my observations in different cases that I've witnessed or been in language immersions. And so the first one that kind of worked, but was only 1 week, is the French retreat that I organize and will organize in the future because this pandemic will be over one day. And what I observed after 1 week, so just to tell you how it happened, it was 7 days in southern France. We were a group of 5 me, a friend of mine who's a French speaker as well, and she was helping me out, and 3 students. We had workshops in French every morning. We had lunch together in French. We had afternoon activities, doing kind of things, beautiful things in the afternoon, wine tasting and stuff like that. It was beautiful. And so in French, and dinner together, and they were going to go back to bed, maybe late, but until the last moment we said goodnight. Everything was in French. Now, I think it worked because, first of all, these students knew me and they were already in a safe space, and I was committed to speaking French to them and to make sure that they would use the language as well. And this is also a limit to, I think, the depth of the conversations, like Laurel was saying earlier. Imagine that you're not there with a guide, a teacher, a facilitator, and like, how deep can you go in a conversation with someone you've literally just met? You're going to speak about daily things or superficial things, but having those conversations about your life, about yourself, and finding the words, you know, to express your feelings or emotions or thoughts, you can only do that with someone that you have already kind of a relationship with, which is hard to do in 7 days if you if you've only met the person. Of course, hopefully, if you stay 6 months or longer in a country, that will happen, but not for shorter periods. So, but what happened positively to them after a week is that they had a rekindled love for the language. It's like, oh my God, this is so cool. And the way people speak and the way, you know, people move when they speak the language. So it's a renewed interest, a renewed passion and excitement, like also Joanna was saying earlier. They had the opportunities to speak the language all day long, yay, and a new desire, and that's important, to continue the immersion at home, the self-immersion, like Laurel was saying. They didn't think, okay, I'm going to go home and, you know, work on my grammar once a week. They thought, no, I want to bring this home and I want to change the way that I learn. I want to find every opportunity I can to be surrounded with the language at home as well. Yes, Urmi, tell us. She had this, the same with Spanish. She learned to speak it fluently in the UK. This is amazing, right? It's like me. I learned English in Brussels. And yeah, I did travel, but I traveled 3 months in Canada, and that helped me. It really did with fluency. But proficiency was really the 4 years after that, by creating this self-immersion, absolutely. So that's what I was actually going to talk about. The case of living in a country without an intention, or with an intention. So when I went to Canada, I was 18 years old, and the point was really, I'm going to spend 3 months there, and I'm going to work on my English. I want to get fluent. I want to feel the language and be surrounded by it. And of course, it worked beautifully, because I didn't want to mime, or I really wanted to learn. That was really my goal, and it worked really well. However, I did spend 3 years in Vietnam, and I cannot say anything more than hello and thank you and no thank you. Maybe left and right to give directions to the taxi driver. It's not that I didn't want to learn Vietnamese. I actually had the Asimil books that I bought. Like we all do that. We buy textbooks, and I thought, yeah, that's cool. And I did do about, I think, 20 lessons in it, something like that. But I don't know, something was missing. I didn't feel it wasn't a priority, to be completely honest. It just wasn't a priority, because I was living in an expat zone in Ho Chi Minh City. Everyone spoke English. The Vietnamese people spoke English. I just found it easier, and I was more passionate about relearning Italian and starting to learn Spanish than to learn about Vietnamese. so didn't learn it. So just to show you, and I'm sure you knew it, that it's not because you live in immersion that you are going to learn the language. You still have to do the work. You still have to know why you want to learn the language, to find your own, desire and motivation, because otherwise it's not gonna happen. And so, yes, like I said, 90% of my English skills, I acquired them in Brussels. Now, to be fair, I was, of course, studying English at university, and I was doing nothing else than studying. I had the luxury of not having to work at the same time. So it was much easier, of course, at the time than now that I'm a businesswoman and a mom to create an immersion. But yes, it was not, well, first of all my courses were in English, the books I was reading were in English, the people with whom the other learners, the other students there, we spoke English outside of our classes as well, because we wanted to practice. I watched English series all the time. I made more friends that were expats, and so we spoke English all the time as well. So literally from morning to evening, my life was in English, which helped tremendously. And yes, Ermi, I know you're Italiana. Yes, I do know your language. Okay, so this was these were my observations about language immersion. So how can we recreate, the benefits of a language immersion then at home? And I created a list of 5 little things. And the first one is, don't wait for a better day, because an immersion is an extraordinary moment. It's an extraordinary experience. It's not something that happens, every day, even every year. It's rare that people actually have immersions every year. And this is something that we tend to do as human beings, is to postpone everything. How many times have I heard, people who would want to learn French say, hey, I'd really like to start, but when I have more time, or I'd really like to do it, but I will go to France and that will happen maybe next year, the year after that. And yeah, okay, those are great moments, but we don't need to wait to have the time. We need to create the time, which we're going to do together actually today. Create the time to self-immerse every day. And that doesn't mean completely changing and wrecking your daily routine. It means implementing French to what already exists. The second point, set your priorities and understand why you're willing to do this. This is really important, because when I have these conversations with French learners, clients, or potential clients, there's usually the first layer of, I cannot learn French now because I don't have time, money, which are the 2 things that prevent us from doing anything usually. And then when we dig a little, and that's the same for me, we all do it. When we dig a little, it's not really a question of time or money, it's a question of priority. It's you want to do something else, or you haven't made a priority of learning French, which is fine. It doesn't have to be a priority, but you need to acknowledge what really is in your life. So why do you want to learn French? Why do you want to feel connected to it? Why do you want to foster your relationship to that language, or to any other language that you're learning? And I think it's really important to connect to that why at a deeper level than, for something external. It has to be an inner, an intrinsic motivation, and an inner desire. Maybe you just love the sound of it. Maybe it makes you feel in a certain way. Maybe it reminds you of someone. Maybe it makes you connected to ancestors, or to people that you know, or to a certain culture that you are fond of. Whatever it is, but just clarify why you want to do it. Then number 3, give up on things that don't bring you joy. I'm really extremist sometimes. It's not difficult for me to throw away things, which sometimes makes people nervous around me. When I left for Vietnam, I sold my apartment and everything that was in it, and I either sold it or gave it away or tossed it, and I left with one suitcase. And now I'm back in France with that one suitcase. We bought furniture and we're like, yeah, sure, maybe one day we'll leave again and do it again. And you may think this is crazy, but at the same time, it's just a question of why would I keep things that just bring, hinder me or prevent me from doing what I really want to do. So when I say give up on things that don't bring joy, it's because sometimes we're just attached to textbooks, that's what I was going to, or anything else that habits that we have of learning, because it makes us feel more at ease with our guilt. And we think, I need to, learn one lesson of my ASML textbooks every day because that is what they told me would work. Or I need to stick to this particular teacher or Italki teacher or tutor because I started with that person and I'm loyal to them. I actually met people who've told me that they've been working for 2 years or 3 years with a teacher that don't correct them or don't give them the satisfaction of learning, but they're committed to certain loyalty. And yeah, loyalty is great, but this is your story. This is your language journey. And if it doesn't bring joy, leave it behind. Yes, Marie Kondo. That's true. I forgot about her. Absolutely. If it sparks joy, keep it. If it doesn't, put it away. Number 4, associate language learning with self-care. Now, this one is, if you know a bit about me, my favorite one, because I think it just brings more depth to the process of language learning. If we say, okay, I'm learning a language because I want to travel, or it makes me happy, or it diverts me from my problems, great, wonderful. But when you see it not as a list of things to do, of things to learn, of topics to explore, but like a gift to yourself, to take care of you, to take a little moment during your day or your week to feel connected to yourself, and you continue nurturing that relationship to language, self-care through language, it becomes something very particular. It doesn't become like it's easier to forget about the result, and it's very important not to worry too much about the result to do this long term. It helps you let go of the fears of success, failure, not performing, being ridiculous, and all of that. It helps you being more resilient with the learning of that language, and that, yeah, instead of worrying of, oh my God, another thing to do, another chore, another to-do list. No, it's a to-be list this time. And so yes, make it habits out of it, because like you were saying, the fact that immersions work is because it's something that happens all the time. And every day. And so if we only immerse or self-immerse in the language once a month or 2 times a month, of course, it's not going to have the same impact if you do it daily. I personally prefer doing it 15, 20 minutes per day than to have, like a full weekend of Spanish, for example. And we're going to see how we can actually do more than 15, 20 minutes a day when we consider something else than just formal learning. So creating a mindful language learning routine. What do I mean by mindful? I mean that it's associated with well-being and being connected with the language and with yourself. I also mean that it's realistic, that it supports your life and not making your life more difficult. We have to be realistic. We cannot say, okay, I want to learn languages for 3 hours per day, every day, and I will make it work. It's hard to breathe just to say that, because there's not more than 24 hours in a day, and most importantly, we don't have infinite energy. We don't. So we need to work with what is. If you do have 5 hours of free time a day, wonderful, great. I'm really happy for you. But if you're like me and you don't, then that's okay too. And leaving white space, that means that when you see the activities which we're going to do in a moment, when you see the activities that you have, that you're doing every day, from breakfast to going to bed in the evening, it's important to not fill every single moment with something, because life is not that predictable, and because we're human, and that we need space to be able, not to be like fixed as bricks, but more flexible and go with the flow. So if you'd like to, we're going to have a look at our daily activities. So again, pen and paper. And I want you to think of a typical day. So not a Saturday or Sunday, a typical day of your life, and to make a list of what you're doing more or less. So I'll show you an example with my daily activities. This is a typical day for me. It's not always like that, but that's what I'm mostly going through. So same thing, what you do, when you do it, when you work, and when you're, make sure to add your free time, to add your commuting time. I'll give you a couple of minutes and then we'll share. So maybe it's not as clear in terms of hours as mine is. We're, different people and we need different things. So for me, it's like, I want everything to fit. So I have my exact hours. That may not be the case for you. But so we're not going to say everything that we do, because that would be pointless. The point is more, I'd like you to have a look at this list. What's the feeling? What do you feel in your body when you look at it? Is it pleasant emotions? Is it stress? How do you react? How do you feel looking at this list of daily activities? So whenever you have a word to share with us, just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay, so I may tell that I'm too disorganized. I think that, I start working early, then I do something different. Now when my kids are at home, I also need to help them with the classes. Then I again work, then I cook at the same time. And I think I need to prepare more for my day, especially now. I need to think of a schedule that would be less stressful, because I keep coming back to work all day, like from the early morning till the evening. And yes, I would need to I like your day. It's like, I need to think, when should I take care of my kids, and when I can fully relax. I think I miss this. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm happy that this makes you realize that. So the feeling then, if you look at it how it is right now, the feeling is what? Overwhelm?
Yeah, I would say I feel overwhelmed and a bit stressed, because then, yes, I have the feeling that I cannot do everything I've planned. So, yeah, for instance, language learning. I used to learn in the morning. It was my private time. And now I often work in the morning, or I think of my kids' classes. So I need to figure it out how to deal with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. A good pointer for that, if you're in that situation as well, is to start. That's how I did mine. I wasn't born like this, right? Just to let you know, it's like, oh, okay, I'm organized. This is something that you learn, and I learn, and it's bound to change because life changes all the time. But so how I worked through this was to go first with my priority, like what really matters to me. And my number one was unapologetically myself and my self-care. And sometimes people are shocked when I say that, like, what? It's not your kid. Well, I cannot be a good mom if I'm not feeling good with myself. So myself, number one priority. And that's why I start my day like that. My number two was my kid, and I really want to homeschool, and not everyone does that. Some people would work in the morning instead. So, but for me, that was my number two priority. I do want to make homeschool part of my life and my kid's life. So doing that and then work, right? So it's basically my day is just a reflection, a mirror of those, but that's a side note. How are you other people feeling about your daily activities right now, your schedule at the moment? Do you feel great, I have space? Do you feel, oh my god, I'm overwhelmed, like Joanna, or anything else? Or maybe you're super neutral?
Looking at it now, I definitely feel like there's room to be more productive. I don't know. Before writing it down, I felt like it was just jam packed. But now, just looking at it, I definitely see space that I can add, more time for me or more time for productivity.
Wonderful. It's really empowering when we start writing down, because we have an image of how things are, and then you write it out, and sometimes you write it down. Oh my God, sorry. You write it down, and then you see that it's different than what you imagine, positively or negatively, but then it's a good starting point to make changes that we want to make. Okay, so we're going to keep that list. And we're going to wait. There's a message in the conversation. Ermi is telling us that she works too much. Yes, it used to be me as well. I actually did a coaching session with a life coach for 6 weeks, and the first thing that she told me was, "When the hell do you create and relax?" So I changed it, and like, okay, 6:30, I'm done, and I'm doing me time, family time, relaxing time, creating time, everything's there. Okay, so we are creatures of habits, and that's why I think it's important to create a routine that we look forward to. And sometimes for people, when you say routine, it equates with boring or, you know, too predictable. But when we are into a routine, when you have the same time slots more or less during the day, every day, it really helps us relax into it and feel safe. And when we do feel safe, well, we actually can activate the prefrontal cortex and make better decisions and start creating from a place of love and self-care more than stress and anxiety. So to create a routine that you love, and sometimes, I mean, some people are more flexible than others. It depends if you work from home, if you self-entrepreneur, if you are working for someone else, if you have kids, if you don't, you know, that's going to change everything. But still, I think it's a beautiful thing when you can look forward to it, when you can think, tomorrow I get to wake up to a great new day that's filled with things that are important to me, right? So again, let's follow the joy in that too and see what makes you happy and what doesn't. Of course, if you come to the realization today that you hate your job, that's a bit more of a problem that we're not going to solve right now, but I'm free for one-on-one coaching if you decide to talk about it. And so to leave behind what no longer serves you. For example, I had written originally in my daily activities that between 6:30 and 7, I would work on my Spanish with a book. And I realized that I wasn't looking forward to it. Although I love Spanish, I was like, oh, okay, I got to do this now. But maybe I'll, you know, you start finding excuses or procrastinating. And I thought, well, why am I, and this is something I shared in one of my newsletters in the last months, why am I imposing this on me where I keep telling people that it's not about what you should do or what you think you must do to reach fluency. It's about doing the things that you love to do in the language that you want to learn. So it actually becomes a part of your life. And that's the reason why we did this together. So I left the textbooks behind, and I'll tell you more about this. So maybe you love them, and I'm not telling you that you should never work with a textbook or you should never work with a grammar book. That's not what I'm saying, right? It has its place. But when we work only with textbooks, the problem is that they imitate life. We read dialogues and transcripts of situations that were created to support a certain grammar point or language point that needs to be come across. And we cannot relate to that. Like, I don't care if Pedro misses his girlfriend and has to go to Madrid to see her. I don't know Pedro. Yeah, great. I learned about the future and, you know, the tense of regret. But I don't like, I don't, we don't relate to them. And so we're really taking the opposite approach today. And instead of having a method that imitates life, we create a life that's immersed in the language. Textbooks to me were another to do things. And really, like I was saying, I invite you to be in a movement of to be, not just to do French, but be French speakers. Learn the language by being in the language. So again, take your notebook, notepad, and we're going to have a little list of activities that you actually love doing in the, not only in French, like things you really love to do, things that you wish that you had more time to do in your day. What's something that you would look forward to? And whenever you're ready, you can unmute yourself and share with us.
Some things I wrote are I love to take walks in nature and then sometimes listen to podcasts in French about topics that interest me, whether it's the news or about language learning. I have a special place in the house that's dedicated to reading, and I love to read there. So that's a good place for me to read French. I always look forward to that. I like listening to French music while I do the dishes and do other chores. And then of course there's Netflix in French. So if you can find a fun series that you enjoy, that's a good way to learn while having fun.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Ingrid. Yes. Who else wants to share the list of things that they love doing or that they would like to have more time to do? Okay. Yeah. Michelle?
So I actually like to exercise, even though I mean, most people don't like to exercise, but I do love to exercise, but I don't have the time to exercise, or I don't make time to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I also love reading, but I feel like I don't have time to read. And when I try to do, I would like to do audiobooks, but sometimes when I try to do audiobooks, I can't focus because I'm just constantly multitasking. So, yeah, I love to read, but I don't make time to read, and I love to exercise, but don't make time for that either.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing. So if you're in the same situation, we have the chart that you made with your daily activities and then these things that you love to do. And if you feel like Michelle that you don't have time to do it, let's see if that's true. And also, let's see what happens if we don't idealize what an activity should look like and instead give it smaller, like a shorter time. Because, for example, I would think in the past that I don't have time for reading in the morning. Morning is time for action. It's not time for reading. But when I think, can I give it 20 minutes? I think I can. And what happens to my day when I give 20 minutes to reading or to exercise? Well, I feel much, much better. And I feel personally what you see, I wake up at 5 to do that. That's a choice, right? You don't have to wake up at 5 to do these things. I do it because I love to be up when everyone's sleeping and it's a moment just for me and it works great. But if it didn't work great, I wouldn't do it. But having this time to exercise and read and write and do yoga and meditation, the things that I love that are important to me, makes me feel that when my daughter's up and when I'm ready for action, I'm good. Like, I don't need to worry about when will I find the time to do the things that are important to me. It's already done, right? Or if it's not something that happens in the morning, I know that it's going to happen later because it's planned. So it depends on your personality type, of course. We're all different, right? But for me, if I have an intention that I want to do something during my day or even during my week, I'm going to write this blog post, I'm going to send that email, I'm going to spend time with my friend and call her and have a conversation for an hour. If it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. Simple. It's not happening because there's always something that's going to come up. There's always an emergency. There's always something else that requires our attention and that makes us, unable to do what we originally wanted to do. So that's my advice, is to write it down, make time for it, see how it can make you work. Maybe you don't have time to exercise an hour. Maybe you have time to exercise 15 minutes. Maybe you don't need to have lunch for 2 hours and you can have lunch for an hour and a half. You can make time there. Don't cram it. Don't make it like cram to the point of exploding. But sometimes we can gently move things around a little bit to make room for things that matter to us and that are going to benefit us on the long term. Not textbooks. So Frenchify. Now this is the third aspect of it. I'm sorry, it's already almost past the hour, but I'll finish it. It's not going to be very long. Now you have a look at your daily activities. You have a look at the things that you want to do, that you love to do, that you want to look forward to. And you can gently, which you'll do after the workshop, gently move around what's in your schedule to be able to make it work for you in a mindful way. And what already exists, we can Frenchify. So we're going to turn as many activities in our days into immersive opportunities that bring you pleasure and excitement and support your well-being. So if you have a look again at your daily activities, I'm sure that you can turn many of them into French immersion opportunity. I didn't say into French vocabulary list making, right? Because that's a different thing. Because I think if I think, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk and I'm gonna name everything I see in French, that's a great vocabulary learning activity. Like, it's going to enhance your vocabulary, but it's not as immersive as while listening to a podcast, like you were saying, Ingrid, in the language, or being connected to your senses and seeing if there's someone you can talk to or whatever, but in a way that is not, you know, the traditional method of learning, but more being in the language. That's why I would favor listening to a podcast than to making a list, because that's more being with something, listening, doing. Okay. So if I have a look again at my chart, which I invite you to do, I put in orange, in light orange, everything that I can actually do in other languages. And I do in other languages, because I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't write anywhere language learning, yet I do learn languages. So meditation, yoga, journaling, reading, and writing are never done in French for me, because that's my mother tongue. And I do it either in English for writing, because I'm writing a book in English, but all the rest at the moment I'm doing in Spanish. So I have a meditation app that's in Spanish. I follow yoga classes on YouTube in Spanish. I journal in Spanish, and yes, it's limited because I don't have a very advanced level, but it's still enough that I can connect with my emotions in the language. And I would read in Spanish as well, just 20-25 minutes. It just makes me feel good, right? In the morning I wake up, I really look forward to it. And so those are activities that I would do in French, that I would do in English. I just would do, full stop. I'm interested in the activities more than in the language I'm doing them to. But because it's in Spanish, because it's in the language I'm learning, I'm creating, associating language learning with self-care. I put breakfast in orange because while I have breakfast, I usually read the news. So I can do that in Spanish as well, or any language that I'm learning. I see Jennifer saying that Spanish is her first language. Yes, I love your language, I really do. So homeschooling, I'm not going to do that in Spanish because my daughter will be lost, but we do have some English and French there, because again, it's important for me to give her some language passion, so it's not only in French. Lunch, how can I turn lunch into something creatively, linguistically immersive? By following a recipe in the language that I'm learning, by watching a tutorial on how to make, tortilla or French crepes or whatever, whatever recipe. But I think it's a beautiful way, because you're cooking and at the same time immersing in the culture, because it's a meal from the country, and following this tutorial in the language. So there you go. This is something you can do absolutely every day, and we need to eat every day, don't we? So yay. At the evening as well, although to be honest, in the evening I don't. What I do is to listen to a podcast then, Not necessarily while cooking, because I like to do one thing at a time, but after cooking, I have a time for washing the dishes, which I find absolutely boring. So I put on a podcast or an audiobook. Michelle was talking about finding the time or focusing on the audiobook. And well, I'm just washing the dishes and just listening to the audiobook, and I look forward to it now. I don't think like, the dishes. I feel like, yes, I have 20 minutes to listen to a chapter of my book. Wonderful. Bed routine for my daughter. I actually speak Spanish to her sometimes, and she gets to like, okay, go brush your teeth and go to bed and let's read a book. Or sometimes it's like dinner time and I'm like, a comer. Okay, no, everyone thinks I'm crazy, but it doesn't matter, because to me it creates this bond with the language. It helps me identify as a Spanish speaker and not only as a Spanish learner. And so finally, the relaxing time, I like to read, watch Netflix, take a bath, is also an opportunity if I want to have more immersion. Now, you don't have to do all of it in French, right? It just depends on how much time, how much of your day you want it to be immersive, but it's possible. So for me, the evening is not always like, either I'll do the morning routine that I have in Spanish, or I'll do the evening. I won't do all of it because sometimes my brain is just going to explode. And I prefer doing it in English, which is more relaxing for me. So you don't have to have all your day in the language you're learning, but definitely some activities can be turned into French. I need to cut it short. I'm going fast, people, I'm going fast. So what's really important is to invite creativity, pleasure, and joy in your daily life through French. And here are some ideas for you. You'll find everything in the workbook, right? I'm going fast, but you can have a look at it when I'll send it to you after this workshop. So singing in the language, that's creative. Journaling, creative writing. So creative writing, you can just like invent a story. It's a very short story. This person, what do they look like? What's their emotion? You can imagine the whole story. Blog writing, I know some people write blogs. Why not try and write those blog articles in the languages that you can write in? Cooking, like we were saying, writing poetry. Sometimes it feels like, oh, this is too hard to do. You must be really advanced to write poetry, but you don't. The first thing you can do is to do a blackout poetry, and that means that you have a text and you just erase in black pieces of the text, and you just keep the words that you love, and they create a poetry. Or, just very simply connecting to your senses and putting adjectives with objects, and there you go. It doesn't have to be super intricate to be helpful. It's just the fact of connecting with your soul, connecting with your heart to the language. Visual arts, painting. How do you paint in French? It's a very good question. By watching a tutorial, or I love to do that, mixing painting and words. Like you have this picture and you paint something. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be, an artist to paint something. It can sometimes just be drops of colors and shapes and just whatever your emotions tell you or need you to go. You can even paint on music and follow the music the way you paint, and then write the words that come up for you, what it represents for you or the emotions there. It doesn't matter. We don't have to have a frame of what art is or what language is or what painting is. Origami folding, just follow instructions to fold origamis, why not? Photography, take a photo and then write a description of it in French. Drawing, following a prompt to art therapy. Dancing to French music. I did a course a couple of weeks ago, which I'm going to do again. It was a 5-day self-awakening through French course on WhatsApp, and one of the prompt was dance on this music, and one of the participants, she skated on the music and sent us the video How beautiful is that? You feel the music in your body and you just let it go, and follow the flow of that. Other ideas. This one is a very widespread idea. You can change the language of your devices into French. Listening to music, YouTube videos, like we were saying, podcasts, audiobooks, meditation, reading, movies, series, and then learn in French. Instead of learning about French, learn in French. You want to take a class about, pottery, do it in French. You want to learn about the history of this culture or that country, of whatever, do it in French, so that French becomes the tool that you use instead of the goal that you have in mind. Last notes. I made it. Be realistic. Remember, don't overdo it. Don't burn yourself out. Don't burn yourself out. Yes. I want to say slow is a new fast, because sometimes people say, oh, it's slow learning, but I don't want to take 10 years to be able to learn French. But when you actually slow down, there's a higher chance of you hitting your goals on the long term. So it's the new fast, really. I want to tell you all that you deserve to take care of yourself. This is really something that sometimes we resist. I think especially as women, it's great to nurture others, but you cannot nurture others if you don't nurture yourself. It's absolutely your birthright to take care of you. And so connect with the language and connect with yourself. I think I'm done. I'll give you a few lines on where I was leading to this, because as I was saying at the beginning of this workshop, the membership program Bulle de Français is opening its registrations again at the end of the month. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm just going to give you the opportunity to join the waiting list if you would like to join and be the first one to know when you can join. So if you don't know what it is, it's a membership program. It's a journal that I create monthly. And Joanna is a member. Yes. So what I wanted to create was really this immersive safe space, for French learners. And the point is that you receive this materials that I create. It's a journal, some audio, some meditation, some reading, some journaling prompts and speaking prompts. And we also have monthly meetings to actually support your self-immersion through self-discovery, through self-development. So of course, if those are topics that you love, you're gonna love it. If you hated it, you want to learn about science, please don't enroll. So inspiration to improve your language skills through activities and things that you would do in your own language to keep you motivated for the long run. Like I said, texts, journaling, speaking prompts, audios, WhatsApp group, and some coaching sessions for the VIP tier. So I go super fast because I'm going to send you a catalog that explains everything about this program, along with the workbook for this workshop that we've had the pleasure of doing together. So you can have a look at it, and if you're interested, you can just join the waiting list that's open now, and the registrations will open a bit later in the month. Why it's interesting to join the waiting list, because there's limited spots for the VIP, and if you want to join that, well, you want to go fast. Any questions? I'm so sorry for rushing this towards the end. I'm always over optimistic with how much or how little I will speak. So, but please, if there's any questions or something you'd like to explore a bit more, I'm here. So just unmute yourself. Or comments.
No questions, but thank you so much for this. I really feel just motivated and inspired to find more time in my day to dedicate to not only learning French, but enjoying it and enjoying the process. So I really appreciate the time that you took today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback. I'm glad.
I'm following Michelle. Great workshop. I really enjoyed it, and I took lots of notes, which I usually don't on workshops. So I actually took a lot of notes to make myself immersed, not just in French, but in other languages too.
Yes, wonderful. I'm really happy that you find this helpful. And yes, I spoke a lot about French, but like you said, it's for any language that you're learning. Yes. Okay, well, if you find that you have more questions in the process, because I hope that you'll put together the activities you love and how to create this immersion for you, please don't hesitate to send me an email if you want some guidance. And so I'll be sending you in about 2-3 hours an email with the recording if you want to watch it again. The workbook, sorry, that's linked to this workshop, and so the catalog for Bulle de Français. Thank you so much for having spent this hour and 18 minutes with me today. It was really a pleasure to see your beautiful faces smiling and encouraging me. And I wish you a very happy language learning journey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye
everyone.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.